You're listening to the Small Business Accelerator podcast, accelerating success, one founder at a time.
With your hosts, Roger Bryant and Sarah Wilson.
We support small business owners, the little guys. We're here to help you win in today's landscape.
Join us each week as we reveal powerful strategies for small business owners that save you time and money.
Because we believe every small business owner should have access to Fortune 500 style strategies without breaking the bank.
Subscribe now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to accelerate your small business success. Ever feel like you're stuck, just constantly putting out fires instead of actually getting ahead of the game?
Yeah, tell me about it.
That's what we're diving into today, right? That whole reactive versus proactive way of running a business.
Right.
And we've got some great material to unpack, excerpts from reactive to proactive guide.
Oh yeah, that one's a good one.
And paired with a course description that caught my eye called Automations Made Easy.
Interesting combo.
Right. So from theory to practical application, hopefully.
I love it.
So the guy jumps right in and they make this super vivid analogy. Reactive businesses are like firefighters. Essential, obviously.
Of course.
But always dealing with the latest emergency.
Yeah. Whereas proactive businesses, they're more like the architects, strategically designing for the long term.
Okay, I love that analogy. So it's about preventing those fires in the first place, not just scrambling when the alarm bells go off.
Exactly. And the guide really dives into how proactive businesses actually do that. And it all starts with really understanding those market trends.
Which takes research, planning, all that fun stuff.
It does. But think about it this way. What if you had invested in, say, chatbots before they were everywhere?
Okay, now that's what I call a competitive edge. Seeing the future, basically.
Right. But I know it can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Where do you even start?
For sure. It's I'm no fortune teller, so.
Well, the guide actually breaks it down into some pretty manageable steps. They say it all starts with a really honest assessment of what's going on in your business right now.
Okay, so a business audit.
Yeah.
Strengths, weaknesses, all that jazz.
Yeah, exactly. What's humming along, what's driving you crazy, where are the bottlenecks? Once you have that clear picture, then you can set those really clear, actionable goals.
Okay, so you're not just setting sail without a destination.
Precisely. And without that clear direction, you're just reacting to the current, right? Instead of, charting your own course.
Which, okay, that makes total sense. But here's the thing. Things change so fast these days. It's the ground is constantly shifting. So how can you possibly stay ahead of the curve when you don't know what the curve's going to be next week?
Oh, okay. That's where embracing this whole continuous improvement innovation thing comes in.
Right.
They use that example. Remember when Netflix made that big leap from DVDs to streaming?
Oh, yeah. Ballsy move.
Total proactive genius. They saw the writing on the wall and they went for it.
But let's be real. I'm not Netflix.
Yeah.
How can smaller businesses, maybe even solopreneurs, how do they wrap their heads around being that proactive?
Well, that's where I think this Automations Made Easy course is interesting because they seem to really target, even small businesses, even solopreneurs.
Okay, so it's not just for those big companies with whole innovation departments.
Right. The course description really emphasizes that. It can help anyone streamline operations, compete with those bigger players even.
Because automation, that's the A buzzword right now. But this course makes it sound less like a buzzword and more like a lifeline.
Totally. Because honestly, who isn't feeling overwhelmed these days?
Amen. So the course promises to help you figure out the right automation tools.
Which is key.
Because who has time to waste on tech that doesn't actually deliver, right?
Exactly. And then it's about identifying which tasks you should even be automating.
Because, let's be honest, some things you just can't automate.
100%. And that's kind of where it gets really interesting, actually.
Yeah, okay. I'm intrigued.
Because the course, it's not just about picking tools, right? It's about actually designing systems to address those recurring issues, those things that keep popping up.
Oh, so instead of fighting the same fires every single week,
you build in systems to prevent them altogether.
Now that's using your brain.
And here's where they had me hooked. The course also emphasizes actually monetizing those automation skills.
Okay, get out. Tell me more.
Imagine taking what you learn and using it to build a side hustle or even a whole new career path. Pretty cool.
Right. That's amazing. Now, speaking of streamlining, the guide actually talks about something that's not really techie at all. Good old-fashioned delegation.
Right. And it's funny because delegation and automation, they kind of go hand in hand. When you figure out what you can automate and what you can delegate effectively.
You free up so much bandwidth.
You're freeing up your most valuable resource, time, mental energy.
And that's when you can focus on, like, the big picture thinking that actually moves the needle, right?
Precisely.
But delegation, I mean, that's an art form in itself, isn't it?
It really is. You're telling me. And the guide, it stresses it's not just about like dumping tasks on other people,
Yeah.
right? It's about really empowering your team.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So that means setting clear expectations, making sure they have the training and the resources they need. And then this is the hard part, stepping back and trusting them to do it.
Oh, yeah, that letting go part is tough.
Yeah.
Especially if you're used to being, like, in control of everything.
I hear you. But think about it, when you delegate effectively, you're not just freeing up your own time and energy.
Which is huge in itself, honestly.
It is. But you're also giving your team those opportunities to learn and grow and really contribute.
Oh, so they can step up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how you build a really strong team. So it's a win-win, really.
I love that. All right, so we're back, and we're tackling the how-tos, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually make this whole reactive to proactive shift? Because it's one thing to talk about it, but putting it into practice.
Oh, it's a whole other ballgame. You're preaching to the choir there.
Right. So the guide, it actually talks about these two methodologies, Lean and Six Sigma. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'll admit, they always sounded kind of intimidating.
I get it. They can sound a little jargony. Like, what is that? But at their core, they're both about working smarter, not harder, which I think is something we can all get behind, right?
Absolutely.
So Lean is really focused on eliminating waste. And by waste, they mean anything that doesn't actually add value for your customer.
Okay, so cutting the fluff.
Exactly. And Six Sigma, it's really about reducing errors, making things consistent.
Streamlining.
Yes. And the cool thing is these methodologies can be applied to literally any business.
Really? So it's not just for, like, those big manufacturing plants or
I
something?
mean, big or small, the principles still apply. It gives you that framework for continuous improvement, which, let's be honest, is kind of crucial these days, right?
It's like if you're constantly striving to be better, you're less likely to get totally caught off guard when something changes, right?
Exactly. You're already in that mindset of adapting. But it's not just about the processes themselves, right? It's about the people. Remember we talked about that whole thing, building that proactive culture?
Right, right.
Well, this is where clear communication and delegation are absolutely essential.
Because you can't just tell your team, okay, everybody be more proactive now.
Right. No. You have to create an environment where they actually feel empowered to do that,
So they take ownership.
Exactly. And the guide uses this analogy. They say, think of yourself like a gardener, not a dictator.
Okay.
Right. Like, your job is to cultivate the right conditions for your team to flourish. Give them the tools, the resources, the support, and then let them bloom.
I like that a lot. Okay, so cultivate, don't dictate. Got it.
Yes. And part of that is fostering that really open communication.
Oh, for sure.
Encourage your team to share ideas, to share concerns, even to talk about their mistakes.
Oh, which nobody likes to do.
I know, but it's so important because those mistakes can actually be the most valuable learning opportunities, especially when things are changing so fast.
It's that whole growth mindset thing, right?
Yes, learning from those failures.
So you're not afraid to make them in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing too, right? If you're so terrified of making a mistake, you're never going to try anything new.
Exactly. It's like you're paralyzed, right?
Okay, so we've talked about the mindset shift, that importance of automation, delegation. We even touched on some of those like kind of intense methodologies. But let's bring it down to earth for a second. Like, what are some of those practical things that our listeners can actually start implementing, like today, to become more proactive?
Well, you don't have to do it all at once, right?
Oh, so, okay, good, because I was about to hyperventilate.
Baby steps. Choose one area where you feel the most reactive. Like maybe it's your email inbox, maybe it's scheduling, or you're constantly putting out fires with client projects. Whatever it is, just pick one thing and focus on that.
Okay, identify that pain point.
Yes. And then start brainstorming solutions. And this is where those automation tools can be so helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Is there something you can automate? Like, think those weekly reports. Can you automate those? Or can you use a scheduling app to manage appointments? Look for those tools that can take some of that weight off your shoulders,
Okay, love that. But then there are those tasks that you just can't automate. I mean, some things require that human touch, right?
For sure. For sure. And that's where delegation comes in. Look at your to-do list. What can you hand off to someone else? Maybe it's social media, maybe it's responding to customer inquiries.
I feel like a lot of people are scared to delegate,
Oh,
though.
I know. But you'd be surprised how much people can handle when you give them the chance.
That's true.
And again, remember what we said. Delegation isn't about just dumping those tasks on someone, right? It's about giving them the tools and the support they need to succeed.
So they feel set up for success.
Exactly. Give them clear expectations, provide the training and resources. And then here's that hard part again. You got to step back and trust them.
Ugh, that trust part.
It's tough, but it's so important.
Okay, so what about for those of us who are like control freaks?
Yeah.
How do we get better at that whole letting go thing?
It takes practice. There's no magic bullet. But think about it this way. By delegating effectively, you're not just, freeing up your own time and energy, but you're also giving your team members those valuable opportunities to learn, to grow, to contribute at a higher level.
So it actually helps them too.
Big time. It's a win-win.
I love win-wins. All right, so we've got to automate. We've got to delegate effectively. What else?
Okay, here's a really practical tip, and it's going to sound so simple, but honestly, schedule time for strategic thinking.
Really?
I'm serious. Because it's so easy to get caught up in that day-to-day whirlwind that you forget to actually make time to think big picture.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So block it out in your calendar, even if it's just like 30 minutes a week. Step back, look at the big picture, and ask yourself, what can I do to actually move the needle in my business?
I love that. Schedule it in. Because if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening.
You know it. Treat it like any other important meeting because really it is. You're investing in your business.
Okay, so we've got some concrete steps. Identify the pain points, check out those automation tools, delegate like a pro, and schedule time to think big.
Yeah.
What else? What can our listeners do to keep this momentum going?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that this whole reactive to proactive thing, it's a journey, right? It's not like you flip a switch and suddenly you're a proactive superstar.
To be patient.
Yes. There are going to be bumps in the road. You're going to have setbacks, moments where you're like, I'm back to square one. But that's okay. It's normal. Just be kind to yourself, learn from it, and keep moving forward.
Progress over perfection, right?
100%. Embrace the journey and celebrate those small wins along the way. Because every step you take towards becoming more proactive, it's a step towards building a more resilient, adaptable, and ultimately successful business.
So we've talked about like all these benefits, right, of making that shift to being more proactive. But let's be real. Change can be hard.
Oh, tell me about it. Sometimes it feels like you're trying to, swim upstream.
Right. And it's not always pretty.
No, not at all. And the guide actually, they talk about this. One of the biggest hurdles to becoming more proactive is dealing with resistance, especially from your team.
Which, okay, that makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because change is unsettling, right?
Yeah.
Even when it's good for you, even when it's ultimately going to make things better.
People get used to doing things a certain way. They get comfortable.
Totally. So how do you get everyone on board?
Well, the guide really emphasizes this clear, consistent communication is key.
Oh, here we go again with communication.
Right. But it's true. And it's not enough to just announce the change like, hey, guys, we're going to be proactive now. You have to really explain the why.
Okay, because if people understand the why behind it,
they're way more likely to be receptive, right? They feel like they're part of the process, not just, being told what to do.
right, like their opinion matters.
Exactly. And then it's not just about explaining the what and the why. You've got to provide the support.
Oh, right, like those training programs we talked about.
Yes. Investing in your team's development, it's one of the best things you can do. When people feel equipped, when they feel empowered, they're way more likely to take ownership,
Yeah.
to become more proactive on their own.
So it's not about just telling people to change. It's about creating that environment where they want to.
Exactly. And that's where that whole thing about building a proactive culture, it's so important.
Where everybody's on board.
It's about trust,
Yeah.
open communication, collaboration.
And not being afraid to fail.
Yes,
Okay.
100%. Because honestly, that's where the magic happens. When people feel safe to experiment, to learn from their mistakes,
Yes.
that's when you get that real innovation.
Okay, this has been amazing. Seriously, we've covered so much from like the nitty-gritty of those automation tools, delegation, to that big picture stuff, building that proactive culture. As we're wrapping up here, what's like the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the biggest thing is just to remember, proactivity, it's not just a buzzword, it's a superpower.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. It's about moving from like that place of just reacting to anticipating and taking action.
It's about creating the future that you want.
Exactly.
And what really resonated with me is, it's not this overnight thing, right? You don't just wake up one day and boom, you're proactive. It's a process.
It takes time.
It's about those small, consistent steps, experimenting, learning, adapting.
And you know what? Those small steps, they can lead to really, really big results.
I love that. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Huge thank you to our expert for all of that wisdom.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for coming on this journey with us. We hope you feel inspired to embrace your own inner proactive superstar. Thanks for tuning in to the Small Business Accelerator podcast.
We really hope today's strategies help you grow your business without breaking the bank.
Don't forget to check the show notes for links to resources we've handpicked for small business success.
If you found value in today's episode, it would make our day if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And stay tuned for our next episode. Next time, we'll reveal yet another game-changing strategy that's revolutionizing how small businesses on a shoestring budget take on giant corporations and accelerate their success.
Until then, keep accelerating your success.
This is Sarah Wilson.
And Roger Bryant, signing off.